Somewhere in America this morning, a man walked into a hardware store holding a broken wrench that was older than he was. His father bought it, maybe his grandfather, and for most of a century, what happened next was the closest thing American retail ever had to a sacred ritual. He'd hand it over, and without a receipt, without a question, without a single form, someone would hand him a new one. That was the deal. That was the whole deal. If a Craftsman hand tool ever failed, for any reason, for as long as you lived, Sears would replace it. Free, forever. No company makes a promise like that unless it intends to build a tool that almost never breaks. And for generations, they did. This is the story of the greatest promise in American manufacturing, the empire it built, the men who inherited it, and the day somebody in a boardroom looked at 100 years of trust and realized it could be sold. Stay with me, because the ending isn't what you think. The company broke the promise. The wrench, as it turns out, is still keeping it. It starts, believe it or not, with $500. In 1927, a Sears executive named Arthur Barrows needed a name for a new line of tools, something that sounded like skill and pride and calloused hands. A small company was sitting on the trademark Craftsman, and Barrows bought the rights for about $500. $500 for what would become one of the most trusted names ever printed on steel. But a name is just paint. What made Craftsman real was the man who came after Barrows, a chief engineer named Tom Dunlap, who looked at the cheap cast iron tools of the day, the kind that cracked when farmers leaned on them, and decided Sears would do something almost nobody did at the low end of the market. Better steel, chrome vanadium, drop forged, meaning the metal was hammered into shape under enormous force, which lines up the grain of the steel the way a blacksmith would, and makes a wrench that flexes instead of snapping. Dunlap made the tools shine, literally, with polished chrome at a time when workmen's tools were ugly on principle. And then Sears attached the promise. Guaranteed forever. Break it. We replace it. They could only afford that promise because of Dunlap's steel. The warranty wasn't marketing. It was a bet on the metal, and Sears was betting it would almost never have to pay. And here's the thing about that bet. American men spent 70 years trying to make Sears lose it, and they loved the company for every failed attempt. Ask anyone over 50, and they have a story. The wrench used as a hammer, the screwdriver used as a chisel, a pry bar, a paint can opener, a tent stake. The ratchet that fell off a roof sat in the gutter through 4 winters and got swapped for a new one by a clerk who had seen 1,000 worse. Men tested that warranty the way you test a rope bridge, and every time it held, Sears bought something money can't usually buy. Belief. A Craftsman tool became the default gift from father to son, the graduation present, the starter set for the first apartment, because you weren't just giving steel, you were giving the promise attached to it. And remember the world this lived in. Sears was the biggest retailer on earth. We told that story a few videos back. The catalog in every home, a store at every mall, which meant the promise was never more than a short drive away. That mattered. A lifetime warranty is only as good as the counter you can walk it to. And for 50 years, that counter was everywhere in America. The red toolbox in the garage became a kind of family safe, not for what it cost, for what it meant. It was the one purchase a working man made that was guaranteed to outlive him, and plenty of those boxes are doing exactly that right now, sitting in garages with a dead man's initials scratched in the lid, every tool inside still under warranty in the eyes of everyone who ever believed the deal. So how do you kill something like that? Slowly. And then all at once. The slow part came first. Through the 80s and 90s, the pressure that got every company on this channel got Craftsman too. Costs. Sourcing drifted. Some lines stayed excellent, while others quietly thinned. And the men at the counter, who could feel the difference in their hands, the way a carpenter feels wet lumber, started muttering. The tools were still good, but the direction had changed, and the old-timers noticed before anyone printed a word about it. Then came the fast part, and if you've watched this channel, you already know the villain, because it's the same one from our Sears story. In the 2000s, Sears fell into the hands of a hedge fund manager who treated a 130-year-old company like a drawer of things to sell. The stores starved. The counters, the ones that made the promise real, started closing by the hundreds. And Craftsman, the single most trusted name Sears owned, the crown jewel, became exactly what a crown jewel is to a man selling off an estate. In January 2017, Sears sold the Craftsman brand to Stanley Black & Decker for about $900 million. Read that trade plainly. 90 years of fathers and sons, of no receipt swaps, of belief, converted into cash to keep a dying retailer breathing a little longer. Sears was gone into bankruptcy within 2 years anyway. The promise got sold, and the seller died anyway. Now, the honest part, because this channel doesn't do cartoon villains. Stanley Black & Decker is a real tool company, and it didn't buy Craftsman to bury it. It relaunched the brand, put it in hardware stores and home centers, and printed lifetime warranty right back on the packaging, where it remains today. That's true, and it matters. They even announced a new Craftsman plant in Texas with real fanfare, an attempt to bring some of the making back home. Though, within a few years that plant was quietly closed, which tells you how hard the economics of the old way have become. So no, the warranty didn't vanish. What vanished is harder to print on a package. The frictionlessness, the culture, the clerk who had seen 1,000 broken ratchets and asked nothing. Today there are terms and steps, and the tool in your hand matters, because the Craftsman your father bought in 1974 and the Craftsman on the shelf tonight are the same name from different worlds. The name survived the trip. Ask the men at the counter whether the promise did, and watch their faces do the answering. We've seen this pattern all over this channel. The wrench, the washer, the bicycle. The names are all still for sale. It's what stood behind them that got harder to find. But here's the ending I promised you, and it's the reason this story is worth 15 minutes of your morning. Walk into any estate sale in America this weekend. Go past the china, past the furniture, out to the garage, and watch what happens when the toolbox opens. Watch grown men go quiet. The old Craftsman tools, the forged ones, the ones with 50 years of a man's work worn into the handles, don't end up in the trash. They get fought over. They get bought by young guys who weren't alive when Sears mattered, because somewhere along the line they learned what their grandfathers knew, that this particular steel doesn't quit. There are collectors who can date a wrench by its stamping the way others date coins. There are mechanics running full sets their fathers assembled one paycheck at a time. The company that made the promise sold it. The company that bought it keeps a version of it. But the real warranty, the one that mattered, was never actually printed on the package. It was forged into the steel by Tom Dunlap's specification in 1930-something. And steel doesn't read the news. It doesn't know it was sold. It just keeps working, decade after decade, hand to hand, keeping a dead company's word. The promise was forever. The company wasn't. And in a million garages tonight, forever is winning. If there's a red toolbox in your family, and I'd bet money there is, open it this week and tell me what's inside, whose it was, and what the oldest tool in there has lived through. Because this whole channel started with one of those wrenches, and your stories have carried it since. If this was worth your time, the Buy It for Life list is free in the description. Things still made the old way. And subscribe, because this is the first of these full stories we're telling. Maytag's Lonely Repairman is next, and this is the place where we remember how things used to be made.